Welcome everyone to Punjabi Chamber of Commerce's next webinar. And this is a big one because pricing is a very, very critical lever for growth of any company. And who am I? First, let me explain that I have around 25 plus years of experience in corporate world, management consulting and all that. And currently I'm a founder and CEO of two of my companies. One is for marketing and one is the advising, merger and acquisitions. We invest more than just money with companies who are looking to move on, founders who want to move on to next projects or who want growth and all that. I'm a co-chair of Punjabi Chamber of Commerce, and with Kulwant Sandhu, she is the VP and supply chain leader of a great medical devices company in here. And who are we? We are a non-profit organization funded by the generous support of Punjabi communities across the world. And we established in 2017, and we have around 17 chapters across the world. We have strict no religion, no politics, only business, and it's a non-religious, non-political, non-partisan organization. This is an organization where we are trying to provide a platform where entrepreneurs, founders, business owners and small, medium size and all that, and then professionals and even people who work in the leadership teams in the many companies can join and help each other and build this community and actually give back to our community across the world. So this is we come from various background, and we have small, from franchisee networks to large organizations. They have been we have been involved, and it's easy to join us. It's super easy. We have a charitable arm where we have been helping during the COVID. Also in India, we've generated some money and sent it across there, and we are again doing some more generating more funds, and we are collecting more funds for a bigger impact in places where we need. And we have a youth wing also, and please reach out to us if you are a youth and if you want to join us. So I have the pleasure of having Per Sjofors. He is a thought leader in everything pricing. Like pricing, I said, is a great lever, and when we talk about pricing, it should not be a sacrifice or a shot in the dark. And I think he is a thought leader. He is an expert. He is a much sought after speaker in various conferences and podcasts and business radio shows, and he has been quoted very, very routinely in financial and business press. And how companies can use pricing to drive high growth, sales volume, and profits is his passion, and that's what he works on for the last decades. And he is, like I said, is the foremost and the pricing guru I have met in my life and I have heard in my life. And I would like to start this webinar and introduce Mr. Per Sjofors, and would request him to give him. And today I would like to say I'm trying to change the format of this webinar, and I will be a learner and a listener, because I want to listen and implement these in all acquisitions and all these things that we do. Because whenever we acquire or find a company or look at a company, my partners and I look at, the first thing is, can we raise their prices? When was the last time the pricing was raised? And I'll be, without further ado, I will request Mr. Per Sjofors to start and maybe share his screen, or yeah, I'm a listener, sir.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Sandeep, for this introduction, and I'm excited to share my experience here. And one of the things that is really important when you look at pricing is not really a number. If you think pricing is a number, you're on the wrong side of the fence. Pricing, when done right, is a business strategy for profitable growth. And that is what I'm going to talk about here. So let me first share my screen, and there we go. I hope you can all see this. And I'm going to talk here for about 45 minutes, and then we have 45 minutes. And after that, we can have some time for questions. And if you if you have something that is urgent, you need to talk about, sort of raise your hand, and I will be able to reply sort of in line. So what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about the basics first. We're going to talk about pricing psychology and how that affects willingness to pay. And we're going to talk about actions that you can take to drive higher and more profitable sales. And that's, of course, what we want in all business, you know. But if we start here, here we have Elizabeth. As you can see, she's not very happy, you know, and that's because she was setting her prices based on guesses, on gut feel, on maybe a fixed margin, or pegged it to a competitor, and that's a sure way of leaving money on the table. Whereas Anne here is very happy because she used data science, she understood willingness to pay and to buy, and she understands the differentiators in her business that drove pricing power. And I'm going to talk about pricing power a little later. Now, there's not many people that has the kind of experience and do what I do in my company. So I want to share a little bit of how did I get here, and this is important for you to understand the basics here. The truth is that I ran some companies in Europe, and I've been consequently running some companies here in the US, and we did pricing experiments. Some of those experiments completely blew up. They were disasters, whereas others were real winners. They, meaning that we could see maybe an increase in in revenues of say 25% next the following quarter. And what I had learned in business school and can read about pricing was so academic and so theoretical that it didn't help us understand why some of those experiments worked and others didn't. Then there's sort of some black magic about pricing as well, you know, and so people think that it's art, but it's not. So so I set out to make pricing practical, and it is that practical pricing and how you can use pricing as a lever to run your business. That's what we're going to talk about here. Now, there's a few other things, and I'd like to say that we're standing on the shoulders of two giants. And the first one of those is Peter Drucker. If you're not familiar with him, he's been dead now for about 15 years, but he's been called the founder of modern management. And one of the things that he says is that customers rarely buy what companies think they are selling them. And with that, he summarized with how difficult it is for all companies, all selling organizations, including mine, to be honest, to really understand why companies buy, why customers buy, or maybe more important, why they don't buy. And it is understanding that is the one key aspect of good pricing practice. The other shoulder is Warren Buffett. And he said that when he looked at his investment strategies, he says that the single most important criterion in evaluating a business is whether it's got pricing power or not. And then he continues to define pricing power. And it's the ability to raise prices without losing sales volume that you often can do if you do it the right way. But I'm sure that many of you went to business school and you learned demand curves looking like this in your economics class. And those are completely wrong. They have nothing to do with reality. And it's because they assume that we as humans are 100% rational in our buying decisions, like we would be robots, but we're not robots at all. We're not rational. We make our decisions on all different things, but we're not rational. Now, thinking about that, why then is price so important? Well, if you look at price if you look at profits in a company, profits only comes from three variables. It's the total cost of your operation, it's the total sales volume, and it's the price of whatever you sell. And of these, price has the highest leverage. And in fact, if you look at this from you look at something I call the 1% challenge. If you take one of these three variables and think about changing it 1%. Now, if you change your sales volume with 1%, profit in an average company goes up 3.5%. If you can reduce cost with 1%, profits in an average company goes up 5.5%. But if you can increase price with 1% or reduce your discounting with 1%, profits goes up again in the average company 11.3%. And it is, of course, profits that drives every company. If you don't have profits, eventually you run out of money and your company will die, right? So how does this look in reality? Well, I went online and I just picked some companies. I have no idea what these companies do. I just looked at their financials that are they're obviously public companies. And here we can see what a 1% increase in pricing will do for these particular companies. Walker and Dunlop, only 4% in added profits, but Olin Corporation is more than 20% added profits if they can add 1% in pricing. Resolute Forest Products is 16% for 1% added profits, and Easy Corp also 21% added profits for 1% increase in price. Now, I actually made a little, I have made a little Excel profit calculator that you can put in your own numbers and increase, see what a 1% increase in price will do for your company. But I mentioned the 1% challenge. Now, what is the challenge? Well, the challenge is, have you ever failed to increase anything 1%? Of course not. 1% is nothing. And when you start looking at this, you start looking at how about increasing 5% or 10%? And if you're like the average company and you can increase your prices with 10%, or if you can reduce your discounting with 10%, and you're like the average company, you're going to double your profits, right? Think about that for a second, and think about that, how that will affect your company. But there's more like this. And I started to say that pricing is not a number, and pricing is a business strategy. And to understand that, we need to consider pricing doesn't live in a vacuum. And to illustrate that, I'm using this joisting horse and knight, you know. Consider this, that the horse is the product or service that you sell. It drives everything forward, you know. And marketing is the knight. The knight is steering the horse, encouraging the horse, and so forth. Sales is the lance. It reaches as far as it can into the customer community, and price is the very tip of the lance. And what this means is that if your excuse me, if your horse only have 3 legs, this is not going to work. It's not going to be a successful venture. If your marketing steers the horse into a circle, it's not going to work. If the lance is only a foot long or half a meter long, it's not going to work. And if there's no tip, or the tip is blunt, it's also not going to work. So all of these needs to work in concert. And when they do, you get pricing power, right? Yeah. Now, another important thing is to gain a better understanding of the market. And I love this picture. So what do we have here? Well, we have 2 companies who are selling a commodity product, and they're in the price war. and they have no customers. This company, on the other hand, selling hard lemonade, which is something really awful in my mind, they understand the customers. And because they understand what the customer wants, not only do they have all the customers, but they can also charge higher prices, right? So, and that is also a key aspect of getting pricing power, right? But there's psychology behind prices and how we make our purchase decisions. And one of the key aspects here is something called expectation bias. And expectation bias is something that we all have. I have it, you have it, all your customers have it. And because it's a human trait. And what that means is that if we are being presented with a price that we think is too low, we equate that it sets an expectation of poor quality or poor benefit. And the lower the price, the more potential customers expect poor quality. And let me illustrate that with a personal little story here. I was in Vegas and I needed to cut my hair before I went to the trade show, to the convention center. And I saw this on the way to the convention center. I saw this sign saying $9 for a haircut. And I passed it because for me, $9 for a haircut sets an expectation of poor quality. And so does a $12 haircut. And in the end, I had my hair cut where there were no signs at all. And I paid the $20 that I expected to pay for a haircut. Now, I don't know whether my $20 haircut was any better or any worse than the $9 haircut, right? I mean, in fact, it could have been the opposite. Nobody knows. But I did not want to take the risk, right?
Yeah.
And maybe I did the right thing because there are people out there fixing $9 haircuts, right? So hopefully I made the right decisions. So prices can be too low, but of course they can also be too high. We know that, right? Yeah. Looking at two high quality watches, they all tell the time just as well. And the left one is too expensive for most people, right? Likewise, cars, we know this. The left one may be too expensive for many people. But buyers are not buying the lowest price, right? Price, in fact, is a balance between not too high and not too low. And 81% of buyers buys the best value, right? But in order to understand this, we need to be able to predict sales volume at different prices. And when we do, we get demand curves looking like this. And obviously you can see this is very different than the demand curves that are being taught in business school. And what we have here is the price that generates the highest sales volume. We have price on the x-axis, we have predicted sales volume on the y-axis. And we can see that if we consider the lower prices, the lower the price, the lower the sales, because it becomes a message of inferior quality. Now, that sales goes down when prices are too expensive is obviously not earth-shattering, right? Mm-hmm. But the other thing we get here is something called price walls. And price walls are psychological price points where small price changes generate a significant change in volume. Now, let me tell you a story about that. A couple of years ago, before the pandemic, I spent some time with one of the VPs at HP, the computer company. And he told me how they had done some experiments. They took this one computer model, they inched up the price $1 at a time, at the same time as they were carefully monitoring the sales volume. And they could increase price with $17 without any change in volume. But if they went up $18, sales just fell through the floor. And that meant two things. First of all, they had found one of these price walls by trial and error. But it also meant that for a long time, they had been leaving $17 on the table for every computer they sold. And this really makes a difference when you sell a low margin product like a computer and you're selling 10,000 of them a day, right? It adds up, all right?
Yeah.
But there's more here. Not only do we have sales volume, but we also have revenue. And a couple of things we can see here, and that's first is that the price that generates the highest revenue and the price that generates the highest sales is never the same. We can also see that in this case, we have two revenue peaks, which is quite common actually. And the left one, left revenue peaks leads to a high sales volume as well, whereas the right leads to a relatively low sales volume. But that means that cost of goods sold is lower for the right peak, meaning that's a more profitable price. And even if you sell software, or if your company is a SaaS company, where there's no real cost of goods sold, what is an issue is you know, the level of customer support that you need to provide, the cost of sales, because you sell fewer licenses, if you like. So look at it also from that point. Oh, so but the real key come when this is segmented. So we take that prediction of sales volume at different prices and we segment it. So I want to first show you how this works. And here we have three segments of customer segments. It's a B2B product, and we can see that this is the curve for segment 1. This is the curve for segment 2. And what this means is that if the price is below 6.5K, the company should focus on segment 1 because that leads to the highest sales volume. If the price is between 6.5 and 10K, the company should focus on segment 2 because that leads to the highest sales volume. And never should a company set prices over 10K, because that really leads to a tremendous, because of that huge price wall we have at 10K. And segment 3 should be ignored altogether because it's it's small and leads to a low sales volume at all prices. Now, so this is customer segmentation. But what you do is you have this prediction of sales at different prices, and you segment it by buyer attributes. This is anything about your buyer. If it's B2B, it may be industry, title of buyer, use case, location, size of company, whatever is relevant for your buyers. If it's B2C, it may be things like location, size of family, income, interest areas, whatever is relevant again. And then you know how all of these affect sales volume and revenue, so that you can focus on the buyers that leads to the highest sales volume at the highest prices, right? Yeah. And then the same thing with product or service. So you will understand how each features, functions, and benefit leads to the highest sales volume and the highest revenue. So you can focus on the features and functions that leads to the most profitable company of yours. And if these are features and functions that is not yet developed, you know what to put your development resources on. And then everything about the seller, which is your company. This could be anything from your brand name to your logo to your product attributes, product name. And we've seen instances where just by changing the brand, we can see a difference in 20 to 25% of sales volume. And it also includes how you go to market, which marketing channels you use, which marketing messages you use, how you position yourself competitively. It's the sales channels that you elect to use, the sales methodologies you elect to use. So you will know how all of these affects what people are willing to pay, meaning how that affects sales volume and how it affects revenue and how it affects profitability. So in the end, what you get is a go-to-market strategy for any company, a complete go-to-market strategy for any company who wants to elevate itself to the next level, whether you're a small startup or whether you're an ongoing company with good revenues. It's all about taking your company to the next level. So if we dig a little deeper here, we look at segmentation based on different customer profiles. Each customer segment will have different reasons for want to buy for you, and you need to understand which one leads to the highest sales volume. And likewise, the same with feature preferences, or messages, which segment prefer what messages that leads to the highest sales and the highest revenue. And the same with feature preferences, different people are going to prefer different features and different benefits, and further different willingness to pay, because different segments will have different willingness to pay. And this may lead to you having different bundles, you're having different product versions, you have different service versions, etc., etc. But how does this work then in reality? Well, I'm going to give you a few examples here. The first example is takeaway coffee. And here we have segmented by marketing messages. And what we can see we have 3 of these marketing messages. And as you can see, it leads to vastly different sales volume at different prices. So a message about organic coffee leads to a low willingness to pay, a low sales volume, whereas a quality message leads to a much higher sales volume. But the highest sales volume is generated with a marketing message says, this takeaway coffee tastes better than making it myself. Now, if you're the marketing person in this company selling takeaway coffee, it's pretty easy to decide which marketing message to use, and because that it tastes better than making it myself, obviously is going to lead to more than twice the sales volume compared to if you use an organic marketing message, So the other example is a dash cam. And this is an example that is done before dash cams become really, really popular. And as we started this project, my perception was that a nerd like this would be what would be the customer for a dash cam. But when data came back, it turned out that females will actually generate higher demand or sales volume than men, and in fact they would generate about 30% higher revenue than men at all prices. And what this means is that from a marketing perspective, this company want to focus on marketing channels which are more likely read by females, as opposed to marketing channels that are more likely read by males, right? Yep. So my perception of who would be the typical client for this dash cam, this nerd, was completely wrong. This is the typical customer for this dash cam. And also, just out of curiosity, females had completely different product requirements for the dash cam, and they were buying it for completely different reasons. So again, the company got a go-to-market strategy that focused on different features, focused on different customer profiles, and so forth, and became a very successful company. Now, another example is an instrument tray. This is something that is obviously sold to hospitals, and also customer segmentation, where we can see that in this case, the material management department within a hospital generates a much higher sales volume then the relevant department, meaning the department who will actually use this tray. We can also see that standalone hospitals generate much higher sales volume than those who are part of a system. And we can see that hospitals with small hospitals with less than 150 beds leads to higher sales volume than those who are bigger. So what this means is that this company gain an understanding of where to sell this, meaning smallish hospitals, not part of a system, and they should send out their salespeople to talk to material management. Anything else is wasted, right? Another example is marketing services, and here we have by geolocation. So we can see that in rural areas for this marketing, and the price is just under 15,000 per month. Rural areas generates much higher sales volume than those who are in small towns and large towns. And likewise, small companies will lead to higher sales volume than larger companies at the recommended price. So again, an indication of where to send out your salespeople, an indication on who to market to. And finally, I have a bike accessory. And what we can see here is that those with electric bikes are not really interested in this accessory, and therefore it leads to a low willingness to pay, a low sales volume. Whereas those with commuter bikes leads to a higher sales volume, really at all relevant prices. And it means that the company should focus on them. And finally, this is a trade show. So it's a service really. And here we can see the curves for this is admission price to this trade show. And we can see that the current price was $90 for a ticket. And this is too low. It's below the price wall at $100. And then above $100, demand is really kind of flat all the way up to 200. And so recommendation was to go with a new price of 195, which obviously is a more than doubling of prices. And what we got from this particular company was this particular email. I'm going to stop a second and allow you to read this. So this particular shot you just saw was worth $11 million in cash for this organization, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And the interesting thing, what she's saying, that feedback from the customer line, price hasn't been an issue according to the feedback from the customer line. Now, this is important because before this price increase, their customers were complaining about the high price. You more than double the price and people stop complaining, eh?
Yeah.
All right. Now, what is important when we also look at this is to have a relevant value proposition. And I'm going to show you something that is kind of interesting or relevant for all of us. You know, imagine that you want to go to this restaurant for dinner, and you look at you really want that steak, but you don't really think you can afford it, so it's going to be the hamburger instead. This is because it's a plain steak and it's a plain hamburger. If, on the other hand, you add a value proposition to that steak, suddenly you can afford it because it's differentiated, you know. And when we look at the sales prediction curves for the plain steak, and we're not going to talk about changing the price of this steak down to $7 because that is not a profitable price for a restaurant. So we keep the current price of $24, but then we look at the difference between the plain steak and the same steak with the value proposition. And you can see that at $24, sales volume will be double, right? Just by adding a value proposition, a relevant value proposition. Now, you may think that it's common sense to have a value proposition, but common sense is not so common. And in fact, I went online and I looked at a few menus, and here we have steaks without value proposition, right?
Yeah.
The one to the right here, you have a New York strip, half a cow for $44. Now, there's good news and bad news here. The good news is that there's a lot of happy cows here because they're still alive.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because sales volume of these steaks are not nearly what it could be if they had a value proposition, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to change track here and talk about what you can do in your company to drive higher sales and higher revenue using pricing actions, right? So this is something, some of these things you can implement today. It's still early. You can implement it today. And the first one is doing product segmentation. And almost any company or service segmentation have some product or services that are unique, and they have some product or services that are commodities. And then you have some that are in between. Now, as you go through these, I mean, we can call them ABC, XYC, 1, 2, 3, whatever you want to call them, it doesn't matter. But the important is that you look at each of them and decide whether it's a unique, a commodity, or in between. And then you need to have different pricing strategies for these. Those who are unique, you should increase price, you should stop discounting because they are unique, because your customers don't really have an alternative, right?
Yeah.
Those who are commodities, you need to focus on reducing cost because commodities are sold on low price only. Yeah. And those who are in between, look at them, try to find ways that you can make them unique if you can. Yeah. Or maybe see if you can cut cost in them and make them commodity, because that's going to increase your sales volume most likely. So you need to have different pricing strategies for different kind of product categories. And this is a very, very common mistake that I see, in that people have the same pricing strategy for different kind of products. Doesn't work. It's a guaranteed way of leaving money on the table. And the other thing I want to talk about is price anchoring. And price anchoring means that you are providing an anchor point so that your prices, when they are presented to your customer, are being perceived to be more affordable. And the most brilliant way I've seen that is when Apple came out with the Apple Watch. So this is a few years ago. So they had a $349 product they wanted to sell, but they also had a $17 product that had the same electronics, and the only difference was that the case was made of gold, right? Yeah. Now, every journalist that followed Apple wrote about the atrocity of Apple to have a $17,000 watch when it's the same product, kind of, as the $349. But what this means is that everyone with an interest in this watch were reading these various journalists, the articles, and that 349, that 350 became more and more and more affordable. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why the Apple Watch today is by far the most popular Apple smartwatch in the world. You know, another way of looking at this is MailChimp, right? They start with setting an anchor with the premium $299, which is crazy expensive, right? Yeah. And what they really want to sell is something that is $14.99. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so this really pulls up that it makes the $14.99 look look more affordable. And the other thing that is important, if you have your prices on the website, on your website, which is sometimes is a good idea, sometimes not a good idea, but depending on your business. But the other thing that is important here is that you start with the high prices, because as we read left to right, I mean, this only takes a fraction of a second, but as we read left to right, the 299 is the first thing we read, and that becomes the anchor point, right? So if you do a website, if you have prices, 9 out of 10 websites starts with a low price and then goes up. That's the wrong way of doing it. And because what that means is that you start with a low price that sets an anchor, and then higher prices becomes less and less affordable. So you should always start with the highest price. And in many cases, if you don't have a super premium product, you can create maybe a bundle of some sort of your existing products, or you can create maybe even an artificial product that has a like I'm sure that MailChimp has done here to drive higher sales at higher prices. All right, the other thing is to understand how different prices, how interrelationship within prices. Here we have 3 power drills. The drill 1 is $90, drill 2 is 95, and drill 3 is 120. And what we can see here is that the cheapest one drives by far the highest sales volume, if you look at the chart to the right.
Yeah.
And this company, and there's a particular methodology called cross price elasticity, where this can be modeled before you actually do the price change. This company made one change, and they took that drill 2 up to $111, and the result was that suddenly became the market leader, the bestseller. The price of drill 1 went down significantly, the drill 2 went up significantly, and also drill 3 went up somewhat, right?
Yeah.
So, and the reason is, if you look at the before sort of statement, drill 1 and 2 were so close, so the perception that was planted in buyers' mind was that they were all the same. So why not just save a couple of bucks and buy the cheapest one? Whereas after the message the pricing gave was that drill 2 must be much better than drill 1. So why would I buy drill 1, right? And by the way, for only a few more dollars, I can get the best, which is drill number 3.
Yeah.
Now, this generate about a 14% increase in revenue, and margin increased with 20%. Another thing I encourage you to do, and that is increase price on low volume SKUs. And that is because they're lacking that reference price. Everybody knows what a carton of milk should cost, but they have no idea what that, whatever it is, should cost. So you can hike up the prices. You're still going to sell very few of them, but it's going to be very profitable sales, right?
Yeah.
And just like I said, with not having the same pricing strategy for different products or different product categories, you should not do discounting across the board. You should do discounting specific to product to drive customers to buy more profitable products even after discount. So look at it on a per service or per product basis. And in many cases, when you sell commodity products, you can add services to add value to your customers. And I was very impressed when I looked at this company, Hilti. They're an old style. They've been around for 100 years or something like that, or maybe even more. They're based in Liechtenstein, which is sort of not something that I equate with innovation, but they do all different things that added services and content and so forth. You have fleet management, you have calibration service, you have repair services, all to add value. And let me give you another example. We worked about a year ago with a company who rents out these steel plates where you that you run over when there's a trench in the street. This company have a 65% market share in the area where they are active, and they are 25% more expensive than competition, roughly. And this is because what they have done is that they have a division of their company who's doing training, specifically safety training. So they position themselves as the thought leader in that industry. I mean, a steel plate, can you think about anything more commoditized? How do you differentiate steel plate? You don't,
Yeah.
but they added services, they added things to that steel plate that enable them to position themselves in such a way that they could command higher prices.
Yeah.
Right. And that, my friends, as they say in Hollywood, is a wrap. So
just to interrupt, we have a question from the audience.
Okay, I'll ask the question. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So the question is, how much of a data, we saw so much of things going on with data and all that, how much of a data is needed? What if I'm a new company and a new product? And so how do I come up with something like the price?
Well, the data is not sales data from the company. It is data that is generated by price-specific market research. It's market research to your market, but it's not market research that you would get from a market research company. Okay. So the number of data points you need for something like this to be statistically significant is minimum 400 data points. And what that typically means is that you need to have an addressable market that is more than 3,000 potential customers, right?
3,000. Okay. So the next question I have is, how do we determine the sweet spot for pricing? You talked about price walls, you talked about lots of stuff on that. If you can maybe explain that again, the sweet spot, how do you come up with that?
Well, in this price-specific market research, what you do is that you have a series of questions in this price-specific market research that where you can measure how people equate value and price, and how I talked about expectation bias, and how they expect that quality to be really to understand at what price points the prices become so low that they equate the expectation bias as this can't be any good. And likewise, when various people say that I can't afford this for various reasons, could be I don't have the money, or I don't have the budget, or which is very common, the value proposition does not resonate with me. So because of that, I don't really see what the price that this could be sold at. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no. Another question I have is, we have heard that bundling the product or services will give more value than single product selling at higher price. So will bundling at a higher price product with the lower price product and bundling them together will bring something, or?
I mean, yes and no. Everything depends. There's no, and this is why doing this price specific market research is so crucial, because 9 times out of 10 you just don't know. And the problem here is that every company have conversations with its customers, right, or prospective customers, and those what happened in those conversations is that a good portion of those customers or prospective customers simply will lie.
Yeah,
they will lie, or they will withhold information. Not everybody, of course, but many of them will do, because they know that next time they're going to buy from you, they want a lower price, or they want more features and functions for the same price.
yeah.
And to illustrate that, I'm telling this story of I mean, imagine you're at the car dealership and you want to buy this car. Would you tell the car salesman something like, if you have it in white, I'll pay another $1,000 or another $2,000?
Never.
No, you won't.
Never.
What you say is, because that's what you really think, but
Yeah.
what you say is that if you knock off another $1,000 and have it in white, then I'll buy it. And that's what you hear from your customers. And that leads to that almost all companies are underpriced.
I can feel that, and I thank you very much for that. I think I have another question I was thinking about. Well, and that's from me, whether this works on products and services both, or only products.
No, it works equally well on products as it does on services. And and in fact, often it works a little better on services, to be honest. So because they're often easier to explain, and they have less features and functions, basically.
So, I have another question from someone from audience, and it says, excellent presentation, and it's clear that I shouldn't take the price specific market research on my own, or maybe deciding a price. I'm putting that on my spin. And what would engaging with PER look like? And is there a standard offer, or PER's work more customized on a case by case basis?
Yeah, it's all customized. Every company is different from every other company. Mm-hmm. and your market is going to be different from every other company. So it's always customized. The process is that we scope the project, and once we engaged, we create the research design, which is the instrument we use for that customer. Customer, what you call it, customer specific market research. And we reach out to potential buyers in your market, and we understand what they're willing to pay, so we can create those charts, which we have developed AI software to do. And then eventually you get a slew of recommendations that you can implement the same day we do it. I mean, not only pricing, but how to use the most effective marketing messages, how to target the most effective or desirable customers, and so forth.
So I have a question. I think what if anybody wants to get in touch with you, there is one thing which I will provide an email. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn and otherwise, and also to you. We provided, and you are providing a template also to anybody who writes to you. And I think we will send that email. I think the email is we will show it to the audience at the few seconds. Now I have another question.
Yeah. We
usually see the pricing and say $499, $499.99 always, $399, $297. What is there a psychology behind it?
Yeah, there is, and it really has to do with the same psychology as price anchoring. When we read a price, let's say $499, what we read is 400 something, as opposed to 500 something, right?
Yeah.
So there's $100 difference between those two. Well, in our minds, well, in fact, there's only a dollar difference. Now, there's a couple of things here that to consider. First off, if what you're selling is a high quality product or service, a luxury service or a product, you should not price on the nine, right? Remember the story of Apple and Apple Watch? It was 17,000, right? It wasn't 16,999. But the product they wanted to sell in volume was 349, right?
Agreed.
So when you want to message quality and benefit, you don't want to pay, you don't want to price on the nine. Now, the other thing is that in most cases, 97, ending on 97 is more effective than ending on 99 in driving a few percent more sales. Using 98 or 96, you should not do. It's not effective. And so it should be ending on an odd number, 95, 97, or 99. And there's empirical research saying that if you're selling consumer goods, this may increase your overall sales volume with up to 20%. Not that people buy 20% more of your product necessary, but they buy additional stuff. And this has to do with how we put our purchases in mental compartments. So one compartment doesn't always affect what you want to buy in another compartment if you want.
Okay. I think we have all the questions now. Thank you very much, Per. I have a lot of gratitude for what you have shared with us, and it has opened a lot of options for us. I think many people would have learned, and I will share this recording at my LinkedIn, and our team will also share it with various places, and also send an email to our subscribers who couldn't join us. So thank you very much. And anybody who wants to reach out to Per, you can reach out to me or Per directly. I think we should give that email. You have let me share my.
Yeah, you can just also do a Google search for the Price Whisperer, and I'll come up.
Yeah, Price Whisperer is your name. You know, you're the. And is this the right email, Per?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay, great. And you can write it to him, and then get. There are two emails here, and then you can get that tool from him free, as well as get more information and project and whatever it is. You know, I learned a lot today, Per, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
And we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Per. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. All right.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.